I would like to talk about ProvisionGenie version 3.0, focus this time on accessibility and localization. Very few words about myself. Hi, I'm Luise. I'm an M365 and Power Platform consultant. I'm independent. I work from Germany. I'm an MVP in both M365 development and business applications. You can find my blog at m365princess.com. And if I'm not presenting, you will likely find me on Twitter as well. Okay, so for everyone who does not know what is ProvisionGenie, so ProvisionGenie is a provisioning engine for Microsoft Teams. It's built with Power Apps, Dataverse, and Azure Logic apps. And it's an open source project by myself and my dear friend Carmen Acevan, which can't be here today, but I shall greet everyone. We already had a long journey with this project. So version 1 was really only creating a team, adding a channel, a list, library, task list, and a predefined tab. We quickly progressed to version 2, which could already add members and additional owners to a team and lets users skip the creation of channels, libraries, and lists so that we were just like a little bit more flexible. And a couple of weeks ago, we launched version 3.0, and that was a major progress because now we do support 3 themes for Teams, like default, dark, and high contrast modes. We have localization in 12 languages. You can add OneNote notebook to a channel, and you can pin lists and libraries to channels as a tab. So as today is all about accessibility and localization, you can find the full release notes at ProvisionGenie.com. I will add the link later to the chat as well, but you will find this. But speaking about localization, so it is really, we already have 12 languages, just like from Danish, Finnish, Portuguese, even Japanese. So, and that really looks cool. So for Europeans, this really looks cool if you're not used to that. So hello to everyone who speaks Japanese, and thanks to our translators. But how does that work? So how can you make that happen, that you have 12 languages in a Power App? So as our data already sits in Dataverse, because that is just like really the preferred way of doing this in a Power App, we have a special table called localization. And in this table, admins can decide which languages they want users to choose from. So if Spanish and English make sense in your market, then you can just like limit the choice to those 2 languages. If you want to have just like a full-blown application and have all languages available, that's up to you as an admin. Genie will then pick up the local, just like the language from the Teams context, and provide this in the language that Teams is running in, with a fallback language that is English if the language that Teams runs in is not supported yet. But users can also override that choice. So if there, I don't know, Teams runs in English, but they want to display Genie in Finnish, they can absolutely do that because it is their choice to do so. And how we did that is pretty flexible, and it also ensures the performance of the app, because you can imagine if we always needed to call just like a lot of values from an external database, which Dataverse still is, so it's not locally available in the app, then they would just like add massive delays. So we use a collection to display only the language that is currently selected, and then we use a lookup function so that we do not have just like a lot of nested if statements to determine in which language we are now in. That makes sure that if we later add new languages, that we do not need to change our Canvas application at all anymore. So a little call to action: if you speak a language fluently, that is not listed on the left-hand side of the slide, and you're willing to help translate ProvisionGenie, then please do reach out to me. Okay, so how do we make this magic happen? First, catalogize all, like really all texts of the application. This includes texts that are printed to the screen, but also just like error messages, warning messages, and so on. Then have them all translated. We used just like super simple Excel sheet for that. And then upload this Excel sheet data to Dataverse. So first I tried to import this. Later I got the gist that this would better work with the data flow, because Once data is updated in an Excel sheet because, I don't know, some values change because someone found a more elegant translation, then of course that should be updated as well automatically. And last thing that you needed to do is thank all the amazing contributors. And as this is a community call, so thank you to everyone who really translated an entire app in their free time. So thanks to everyone. So how does this now work? I will stop presenting here and jump right into the demo. So what you can see is Power Apps Studio, and I already opened ProvisionGenie, and I want to show you what happens. So we have here a simple text label, and this text label, of course, has a text property, and as you can see, it uses a lookup to a collection. And then it asks for a key, which is label welcome, and it returns a value. So let's see what happens and where this collection is being collected and what is that value about. So if I go here to settings, and I say, hey, I want to have this app, I don't know, maybe I want to have this app in French, which is français. Then we can see that the entire app language already changed to French. So there is nothing that is English anymore. So how does this now work? If I go in here and say, I want to see what this unchanged, which I did, what that does. So what it does is it sets the display language to a variable. And then I say I want to clear collect into a collection called call language. And I want to filter my localizations table. And the language should be the same than the selected language from my drop-down menu. Okay, so for that, we would need to know, yeah, but what is the localizations table? The localizations table is something that I prepared for you here. So that is a view of the localizations table. It sits in Dataverse, as you can see, and we have a key. We have a value and we have the language. So if I want to search for something, just like look up something that is LBL welcome, so that I would need to scroll down or set a certain filter to that, but then it already knows the language because I filtered my localization table into this collection. So so that I only get the data that I really need, which makes the app faster as well. And then I will return this value here. Okay, so and that means that every single text that is displayed in the application works like that. So there are no hard-coded texts inside of this app, not even error messages or warning messages, but every single text sits in the localization table in Dataverse and is then being collected into a local collection with this drop-down menu. So switching to another language, and as you can see, the entire app already changes again. So this is what we do. And to quickly show this here as well, if I select this drop down and I'll see what is the items property. So the items property determines what is shown in this drop down menu. So it refers to another Dataverse table, which is the supported languages table. So that's another one than the localization table. And in that we only have the values of the languages, and it refers to the localization tables, and there are the languages column, so that admins can decide which language do we want to display here, because it does not always make sense to have all kinds of languages, but in this demo I chose to show off all the languages because we're very happy to have them in here. And as my Netherlands is not as good as it should be, I will switch to English again and close this pop-up again. So as you can see, everything is localized and works like a charm, and it's even fast because we only collect this locally when we choose or select the language. And by default, it checks which language is in Teams and gets this context and defaults to English if the language is not available. Okay, next thing would be accessibility in our application. So we feel like accessibility is not a luxury thing that you should add on top to an existing app. but it should really be one of your major design goals. And this is why we really invested very, very massively into accessibility. And I would like to show you what that means to us. So first is, I hinted this already, we have 3 themes. Default, dark, and for accessibility reasons, high contrast theme. And this is especially interesting for everyone who has a hard time seeing or is partly or completely blind, because that then helps to even see just like a little bit if the contrast is high enough. We also made sure that we manipulated the themes.json file so that if I add a new control, it already adapts to that look and feel of themes, and also that works in all 3 themes, which is quite nice and of course reduces the effort that I need to make as a developer. Second thing is we have a screen reader and keyboard only support. And we do this in a way that we have always the accessible label property for all controls fields. And in these as well, we use the lookup function to do this in our 12 languages. So it's not that the accessible label is only available in English, but we want to make ProvisionGenie available to more and more and more people, and that is why all the comms is then available in our languages. We made use of the role property of all text labels, which determines is something a heading 1, a heading 2, a heading 3, or just like a default body text, which makes it easier for screen readers to announce everything correctly, and so that users who have a hard time seeing something are just like more at ease what belongs together. And then, of course, we use the tab index property to really make sure that people can easily tab through our app with the tab on the keyboard, because everything follows a logical order. And as I already said, just like only a couple of times, that including all these errand warning messages is available in 12 languages. So it ties into the localization thing as well, which is why we chose to present this at the same time. Okay, quick demo of accessibility. So I opened ProvisionGenie already in Teams. So ProvisionGenie can work as a standalone app, but you can also run it as a personal app in Teams. So this is what I did right here. You can see I run Teams in the web client right now in the dark mode. So, but not everyone runs Teams in dark modes, I guess. So what I can do is, of course, I can go to settings and switch to default mode, and then Teams switches to default mode. And if I then just like reload my application, it will pick up the right theme from the Teams context. And yes, this is a developer environment. I know this. I will pick out the right colors, and you can see that I now run ProvisionGenie in default mode as well. And if I do the very same thing with high contrast mode, high contrast, and then I reload the application. And yes, thank you for that. Then you can see this runs in high contrast mode as well. And for everyone who does not work on a regular basis with high contrast theme, this could look a little bit ugly to you. So maybe it's just like uncommon for you. But trust me, for everyone who needs a higher contrast, this is just like really the way of consuming and interacting with apps. And also it makes sure that additionally to that theme, we have a screen reader and keyboard only support, so that we really make sure that more and more and more people can benefit from the application that we developed. So how does this now work? Switching back to Power Apps Studio. So I have an app object, and it is here on start. And what I do on start is I set themes. So I can either do this if I get the context from Teams. This is done with the param function, or I can do this with a drop-down menu. So this is mostly for debugging and development purposes, because mostly people will not override this, but they can do so. And then I defined all my app colors. And I refer to all those app colors in something that I call the global app styles. So you can see for each and every single control that I always have 3 values, one for dark, one for default, and one for high contrast modes, and then a simple text label like that. So we already determined it has a text property, but that has, of course, also a color property. And you can see it's global app styles.label.color. And in this preview, it's shown that here in default mode, this is blackish, I would say. So what happens if I now go in here and I override this and I say, hey, I want to have this app in dark mode? It is still the same value. It is global app styles.label.color, but it resolves to a white-ish. So it's not completely white, but white-ish, because I defined that in onStart and made this dynamic. And that means that everything is always adjusted just like on the fly, on time, without needing to have a different application or something like that. And this is quite convenient for users because they get displayed the app in the theme that they are already using. But if they want to run it standalone, or if they have a good reason to just change that, they can do so, like they can change the language as well. And with that, I would like to say thank you to everyone who attended this. If you feel like contributing to ProvisionGenie because you're a Power Apps person or you want to become a Power Apps person, please don't hesitate. You will find the GitHub repository and the complete docs at provisiongenie.com. Thank you.
Very, very cool, Luise. Thank you for sharing that. I love how inclusive that is. 12 languages, that's impressive. Accessibility is an important thing. Thank you. ProvisionGenie is granting wishes just like that, right? So we want to appreciate and thank you for that.